Hey, what's up? This is Fabien. I'm your host, and this is the Brand Runner podcast, where we talk marketing trends and tech. In this fascinating episode, I am joined by Natasha Chang, social media manager at Monday.com. We explore the secrets to success of how to build a presence online. In this fascinating episode, with Natasha, we discuss how to build a presence B2B versus B2C, how to get started from scratch and what to focus on. Between paid versus organic, is paid necessarily better? Why is TikTok Natasha's favorite platform? And what is the Fediverse and what is next with social media? It is such a treat to have you on the show. Thank you for agreeing to do this. And first thing first, I would love you to tell a little bit about you and your story and how you got where you are today.
Well, Fabien, thank you so much for having me on your stunning podcast. I'm very excited to be here. So I'm Natasha. Hi, I am the digital communications manager here at Monday.com, also easily known better as social media manager. I am basically overseeing all 5 organic social channels for Monday and creating specific content, working with different teams to be able to put out the very best content that speaks to our audiences. I started out my journey as a journalist, actually, funnily enough. I went to school as a journalism and documentary major in Northeastern University in Boston, Massachusetts. And when I graduated, I figured out, wow, journalism is really difficult and doesn't make a pretty penny. So I had to maybe adjust a little bit of my career direction, and that's kind of how I ended up first in public relations agencies, so PR agencies. My first intro to it was representing B2C brands, so think Unilever. That was one of my biggest accounts. I was in charge of the PR for Ben & Jerry's, Magnum, Listerine, Aveeno. Created lots of influencer marketing and events and press releases and product launches. It was a very fun time. We always got a lot of free gifts. And then I, slowly transitioned into the digital marketing space, representing brands like SAP, while still doing B2C marketing. So I was straddling 2 worlds at the same time, which was a very interesting and very fun period because you were able to kind of dip your toes in something that was a little bit more serious and toned down versus, B2C marketing is always a little bit more fun and playful and a different space. And then I wanted to really focus on just content creation within the social marketing media space. And here I am now at Monday.com.
Cool. Always find it interesting to hear the journey of everyone who comes on the show. I clearly remember when YD and you started to work with us, and it was right when we were producing our big game ad. Now you're both full-fledged members of the Monday team, and YD also has an amazing story. But I can clearly say that there was clearly a before and after moment when you guys joined us that led us, amongst other things, to go to an amazing 182,000 followers on LinkedIn alone, and that's insane. And even more so for a B2B brand, right? Because it's also a different challenge. Our social channel were never the same since, and you earned internally the nickname as the TikTok queen. Yeah. So the comms team is definitely doing something right here, and I would love to hear your best tips. So first, I want to ask you some personal stuff.
Of course.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Let's get personal. How much time do you really spend on social media for you, not for work? And do you have a set of rules to keep it balanced?
Wow, that is a great question. And I think it's really difficult because social media is my work also. And so I probably spend a lot more time than the average adult. For me personally, I think I spend, for not work, at least 5 hours a day. If you top it up with work, it's way more than that. We don't even want to know the hours. And how do I keep a balance of that? Honestly, I don't. And I guess I'm in that space where, is it something I'm proud of, or is it something that I am very aware of? I think what I will say is, I thoroughly enjoy being on social media. And I feel like when I'm on there, I'm being entertained and I'm also learning something new. So it doesn't feel like I'm wasting my time away and my brain is rotting. I feel like I'm learning something new every single time I log on to TikTok or being updated by, a friend's update on Instagram, for example. But my boundary is if I'm speaking with someone or I'm hanging out with someone physically, I am putting my phone away in my bag, away from sight. That just really helps me feel, present,
Yeah.
be as present as possible, and just give respect to the other person I'm with. So
That's a great rule.
yeah.
So do you have a favorite platform and why?
Fabien. I really love TikTok. That is my favorite platform.
Yes?
Yeah.
Why?
Wow. So many reasons. I could spend hours.
Were you on it as soon as it launched, or like?
I think, listen, I wasn't on it when it launched. What was it like? It really was still unknown in like 2019. I think I only really went on it during the COVID pandemic when everyone was on there making coffees and dancing to songs. And it was like a little escape from being in your home 24 hours a day. But I really, really love TikTok. I think it's such a fun platform. Like I said, spend the most amount of time on TikTok. And my FYP, my For You page is fire, okay? Like TikTok is a breath of fresh air from all the other platforms that we've seen, curated platforms. I feel like TikTok is like super authentic. It's super real. It's where you can build community. It's wow.
On this episode, I want to discuss with you some of the secrets on how to build a brand online. Yeah. As simple as it may sound, we'll start with why are social media important in a marketing strategy?
Wow. Honestly, I will say that there are still people within the brand space that don't fully realize how important social media is in the marketing strategy. And marketing is a machine, right? It's made up of so many different moving parts. And I do believe social media is one of like the key cogs in that machine. Why is it important? I think that first and foremost, brands need to be taking advantage of social media, knowing that that is probably where your customers are. That is where they're spending their time. That's where they're consuming news, where they're, interacting with other people. Your customers and your community that you're trying to build is there. And also understanding that your competition is probably there as well. So trying to keep an eye out on what they're doing and figuring out, how they're speaking to their customers and really being able to reach them, I think is really important. But I think at the end of the day, brands should be on social media because you want to increase your brand awareness. Speaking to your target audience is great, but if you want to reach more people and continue building that trust and that community, that's social media.
Cool, those are great points. For the more entrepreneurs and startups of our listeners, can you give a simple blueprint to follow when you're starting from scratch and what to focus on?
I'll start by saying that if you are trying to create a social media strategy and you're finding it really overwhelming, that is perfectly valid. There are so many platforms. They're constantly changing. They're constantly rolling out new features that you have to take and implement into your day-to-day, not to mention the content management of all of that.
Yeah.
It can truly be overwhelming, and it takes time, it takes effort, and a heck of a lot of persistence. And even as someone in the social media space, it can sometimes be really challenging to turn on that creativity day in and day out. I don't think I can truly boil down everything I've learned over the last few years into like a cookie cutter blueprint that everyone can use. But if you're starting out in the social media space without any experience, I would start in two specific places. One is figuring out your target audience, and two, deciding on a platform. Identify the prime person you're trying to speak to so that it's a lot easier for you to create content in the content creation effort that you're going to ultimately have, and find out where they want to spend or like to spend the majority of their time online and consume that specific kind of content. If you just focus on maybe, let's say, two or even one platform, you're just investing your time in fewer places, which means you're more likely to nail the content, produce quality content, and make sure that it specifically speaks to your audience, and being able to analyze that and change, instead of spreading yourself so thin across like 5-6 different platforms.
It's very, very true. I did some brand consulting for clients before, and like it happened to me several times where your clients say, you ask the question, so do you know where you want to be? And they say, I want to be everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's the worst thing you can do, because, the worst thing, no, it's not the worst thing you can do. It's the worst thing you can do if you cannot really follow through and be present.
Exactly.
Right? Otherwise, it gives you the opposite effect, right? Because if you have the account and you have zero content and you don't manage it, that
What's
shows...
the point?
Well, the problem is that you have people that goes on your profile and see you not doing anything and just think that you basically have a non-existing brand. So you get,
It's that question like, they have a profile, but their last active post was like a year ago. Is their business okay?
Yeah, exactly. So it's better not to have the profile.
Exactly.
It's better to focus on one platform, two platform, and
put all your effort there.
Yeah. Cool. Can you talk a little bit about social vs organic? Is paid always better? And I know you mentioned here at Monday you specifically manage the organic platform.
Correct. Social, organic, unpaid, and paid, for me, in my experience, work the best together. I think the approach to it is slightly different. Like from an organic perspective, if you're looking at it from a funnel, unpaid or organic content sits at the very top, which is awareness. And then you have paid, which helps move people further down the funnel to eventually, buy said product. So I think it's not that one is necessarily better than the other. It's just two distinct approaches. And if you work with paid and unpaid, or paid and organic hand in hand, it's going to be a very successful marketing strategy. And I think if you have something that is just organic, sure, you're able to build your brand. It's going to take a considerable amount of time. With anything organic, it's not like a click of a button and you're going to be able to gain like 6,000 followers or 10K followers. And unpaid is more of that storytelling, building brand awareness, building trust, building community. Whereas acquisitions, it's more of that like decision making. I'm going to click on this button and I'm going to figure out and I'm going to do a trial. And so if you put them together, I think it's the perfect partnership.
Cool. So that's a good way to lead to my next question, which is one of the key factors I always hear about building presence and engagement is consistency. But at the same time, you don't want to overload your audience and create social fatigue. So how do you strike the right balance between consistency and not giving the impression that you're spamming your own feed?
Listen, I think it's dependent on the platform. So my rule of thumb is don't post more than once a day. I don't think someone, let's say on LinkedIn, wants to see 6 posts, promoting a webinar here and reading a thought leadership piece here, or 6 tips from X person here all in one day. You gotta spread it out. That being said, on Twitter, understanding the audience behavior there, or I'm so sorry, I should have said X. It's no longer Twitter.
I just saw this morning or yesterday, I think they changed the icon.
Yeah, the icon's changed. The logo it has to be changed everywhere.
It's a new platform. Get on it now.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I mean, so with X rebranded from Twitter, what I found from our audience is that people like to have multiple tweets a day. They're like interacting on each tweet pretty much the same as the previous one. It's not like you post one, it's going to get massive engagement, and then the next one no one's going to engage with. I think the audience behavior on Twitter is that they're scrolling and they're reading, and whatever resonates with them, they'll like. So they're not... there's so many brands or even people putting out like one-liners that the behavior and consuming behavior there is a little different than, let's say, LinkedIn. In terms of just general consistency, I would say post once every day except the weekend. Give the weekend a little bit of a break. I think even understanding just general people behavior, they don't necessarily want to see like, you know, a long, brand post trying to sell them something on the weekend. They want to be able to, you know, find something else, catch up with friends on the weekend, and understanding like there are waves in the week, and being able to meet your audience in that specific wave, I think is very important.
Cool. When you do B2C, then you connect the brand to a potential user or customer with a product he or she will use personally. But when it is B2B, it's always work-related. We're lucky in the sense that Monday.com is a pretty sexy product, right? But if you take corporate insurance or anything else, can you talk a little bit about the difference doing it for B2C versus B2B?
Well, I think for both B2B and B2C marketing, while they do have two distinct approaches to marketing, at the end of the day, I think it really comes down to human relationships, the human experience, the pain points. I think social media has really been able to grow these human relationships, and the importance of it has really just accelerated in the past few years. But I think the main difference boils down to who you're targeting your marketing to, and how you're engaging with your target audience on each platform or each channel. There are so many nuances to capturing the right tone, capturing the right mood, offering the right incentives for people to buy from your business. I also do think that the lines between B2B and B2C can definitely intersect sometimes. There are like so many cases when the same one company can have both B2C and B2B running simultaneously at the same time. I'll give you an example. An interior design agency offers to design office spaces for a business. That's B2B service. But it might also design certain rooms for houses, let's say for home buyers. That's a B2C effort. So I think something that's really unique about Monday, you were just saying how Monday was like a sexy brand. I think what's really unique about the way that we approach marketing is truly bottom up. Monday.com, it has a bottom up approach, and it's been a big part of like the Monday.com strategy from the very beginning.
Yeah.
It's on a social level, it's like human to human with the context of a team. You know, we want to be able to reach managers, people who are managing a team of people. And I think coming back to what's unique about it, we are a B2B, but we speak B2C. And I think that's just gives so much more room to play around with creativity and being able to speak to the audience, but speaking in the way that humans speak to each other, if that makes sense.
For sure. I know, like, I monitor your work, and I
Oh,
monitor...
do you?
And I monitor the social media channels of the brand, and it's always very, approachable, amicable.
Yeah.
So it's even like, we'll talk about threads a little bit later. But
Threads.
yeah. So at the end of the day, you always speak to a human being.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. We never want to feel like when you're reading something of ours that we're trying to sell you something. We want you to feel that the specific type of content is really speaking to you and not speaking to you to do something. I think it's really about building that trust and building that relationship, and wanting to make people feel that when they see a content from Monday, that it's a genuine piece of content that they want to stay and watch through or read through.
different platform equals different type of content.
Ooh.
Can you elaborate on that?
Different platforms different types of content. Well, let me just say that within, there's a difference between static content and video content. And let me rewind and take you through the thought process of deciding what type of format for one specific content. So let's say you want to have a content piece regarding tips. We're trying to, give you tips from a manager here so that you're able to take it away and implement into your role. So, do we want this piece of content to be a text only? Do we want it to be a text only with static content? Is static content going to be 1x1 or a 16x9? Does it have to be a carousel post? How many different slides do we have in the carousel post? Maybe it's better to have it in a video format. Do we need the video format to be fit for LinkedIn? A little bit longer form, something with a little bit more of a professional look and feel? Or can it be run and gun 9x16 Reels and TikTok format under 1 minute, ideally 45 seconds? This reel, is it going to be on Instagram? Because if so, we have to create a static 9x16 cover for it so that it looks really nice on the feed. What is the best way to deliver this piece of content in what format? It just is a lot.
So are you deciding on the type of content first? Or are you deciding on the platform first?
We're deciding on I think it works in tandem, because let's say I want to be able to create a specific content for LinkedIn. I need to be able to understand, okay, my target audience on LinkedIn is very different than my target audience on Instagram, for example. And so if I want to create, a post on LinkedIn, that content strategy and content creation is going to look a little bit different than the post we put on Instagram, for example. So it works in tandem, it works hand in hand. But more recently, I found that when we have these meetings every week, brainstorming and having these creative meetings, the creative or the idea comes first, and then we choose what platform we then put it on and what format it will take best with our audience.
Let's talk about TikTok.
My favorite topic.
Yeah. So I read in the LA Times that TikTok ads are now reaching up to 50.3% of US adults. But it seems that at first it might be the least interesting platform for businesses if you think of B2B, B2C. But in the last couple of years, we've seen a huge increase of brands taking over this platform. Why is that?
Wow. Better sit down and be comfortable, Fabien, because I can talk long about TikTok. I'll first preface by saying I love TikTok. This is my favorite platform. It's the platform that I spend the most amount of time on. My feed is fire. It's the best. And this is how I can spend as long a time as I do. I feel that TikTok as a platform in general is just an amazing breath of fresh air. I really do remember when back in 2019 when TikTok was generally still unknown and people were just dismissing it as the latest Gen Z fad, or it's gonna pass, let's not invest so many resources into it because it's a fleeting app. It's not really gonna make it past 6 months or a year. Well, fast forward to 2023 and look at where we are now.
Yeah.
And I think brands have started to realize that TikTok's roots are in community, they're in creativity, in collaboration, more than any other platform that I've seen. And the result of all of that is a platform that's tailor-made for authentic and captivating content with a massive, highly engaged audience. We went from having a very curated presence online as a social media user, like Instagram, you're really choosing what photos you're putting on there, you're really choosing what videos, it's highly curated, it's perfectly colored, to then people coming on TikTok and feeling re-inspired to create content that doesn't take 4 days to edit. And for brands, I think TikTok is really poppin' for a few different reasons. One, it's become a search engine. Users are really utilizing it the same as like Google or YouTube or, back in the day, Yahoo. Not judging if you still use Yahoo. But you can, search keywords. You can save inspirational content. You can find informative content. And your page, your For You page, is custom made to match your interests. I personally go on TikTok first before Google. Like, TikTok has changed my behavior entirely. Let's say I want to have, we're going on a holiday, Fabien. We're going to Tokyo. Where am I going to go for the best things and best places to go? TikTok. Best hotels? TikTok. And then if I'm not finding it there, then maybe I will go to Google. But yeah, that's reason number one. Reason number two, TikTok users are primed for product education. And I think that's where brands are really starting to understand the TikTok audience. Yes, it's generally made up of a much younger target audience, but don't forget the millennials and, the Gen X's. They're there too. They're just maybe not creating content, but they're definitely consuming content. And I think that TikTok's greatest strength is that it fosters an amazing sense of community, that a community that relies on each other for hacks, for reviews, for recommendations, for tips from other peers within their space. Just think about it. Like shopping tags, like TikTok made me buy it, has 17 billion views. Amazon finds, must-haves. I mean, product recommendations alone are such a big part of the TikTok ecosystem, and it's really beneficial from a content creator perspective, and even a e-commerce brand perspective. I think there are so many things that I have bought because 3 creators have told me to buy. And so I am in the hashtag TikTok made me buy it.
Let's move on to the next question. What about brands like ours that is B2B?
Fabien. Listen, I will be frank to say that from a B2B SaaS approach, we haven't cracked the secret to being successful on this app. But
how do you define success on this app?
Success meaning, engagement. It means impressions. It means reaching the right target audience. I don't think we have created or really ideated a perfect content strategy for us to, be successful, let's say in quotation marks. But the team is very persistent, and we're always trying to think of new ideas to be able to remain consistent on, and spark that kind of audience love and trust with us. But I think, what I mentioned about how TikTok users are primed for education, in general, that's kind of who we're trying to speak to, and we're moving in the direction where it's more, trying to educate users about how-tos or tips from he or she. And I think, instead of just doing funny videos, we want to be able to provide that value from a brand perspective.
That's a great answer. Addressing the education generation. Let's talk about the question that's sting, TikTok and privacy. TikTok has been in the press recently because of shady privacy practices. So much that TikTok was banned in Montana and Texas, and the Australian Senate Committee recommended that government ban on TikTok just a few days ago. And even India banned TikTok. Do you think TikTok is on the way out for brands?
Okay. Do I feel that privacy and our content and how it's being used on social media platforms is important? Of course, I definitely think it's important. That being said, I'm going to give you, the example of Cambridge Analytica. Do you remember when that happened?
Yeah.
And that entire scandal. even with that, and I'm sure other instances and other use cases of those types of scandals happening that have to do with privacy, I'm not sure if it impacts how much people still want to use social media platforms.
Okay, so let me chime in here. Before I worked in Monday.com, I used to work in privacy tech. Okay.
You're setting me up for failure.
No. You will see why. Company was Semind.com. Check it out.
Okay.
Yeah, basically it's an app that allows to reveal your footprint, your digital footprint. And the less digital footprint you have, then the less breach, hack, etc., can happen. So the less data you have out there, the better. That's the bottom line. And so basically, like, the Cambridge Analytica is something very specific that talked about a leak that happened with Facebook, right? But it did not trigger bans the same way it happened with TikTok. Like Facebook, you can still use Facebook in the US, you can still use Facebook in India, etc. But TikTok, like, if it gets banned from those US states, like, and it starts, ramping up, then all of a sudden, like, if you look at, like, if the US is your key market, then all of a sudden your targeted audience, you cannot reach your targeted audience via that platform anymore.
Right.
Because people just don't have access to the platform anymore.
Accurate, yes.
So, I'm not exactly sure which direction is going to go with TikTok, but like, if they keep on getting banned, then brands are no longer going to be interested in using it, because, they won't be able to reach out to their own audience.
That's a great point. I think, like, a part of me also, maybe because I watch too many of these, like, legal shows, I'm also thinking, like, are they really interested in privacy, or are they just anti-TikTok because it's a Chinese-made app and they think that the Chinese are spying on Americans? What is the intention, really? There are other platforms that have also, people question privacy, and they don't really take as big of a stand on other ones. American-made than TikTok, but I don't know if we want to go into this space. But I feel, there's always some kind of motive there that maybe isn't as transparent to the public as we might want to think.
Gotcha. All right, let's talk about Threads. I will say that I got on Threads because of you.
Really?
Because you posted something on the company Slack about it, and I was like, well,
I did.
So your Slack announcement when they launched, I think it was on the day or the day after.
It was
I can't
the
remember.
day
It was the day. You were
on. Yeah.
it. Yeah, you were on it. And I was like, okay, if Tash is checking it out, I need to check it out. So I signed in, and I, wandered around a little bit, but I wanted to hear your take on it. So what's the deal with Threads?
Well, I mean, I'll ask you first, like, Fabien, are you still using Threads? Do you still scroll?
So I go in like maybe a few times a week, just for the purpose of checking it out and benchmarking. But I'm not doing any active, who am I going to follow there?
Yeah.
Posting stuff at all. Like you said, consistency, right? So
then my second question is, are you a avid tweeter? Twitter? Tweep?
Xers, you mean?
Xers? Are you an Xer?
I'm more on X than on Threads, but I will say I'm like the main social media platform I'm mostly present on is LinkedIn and Instagram, and that's it.
Well, for me, Threads was very exciting as a brand to be able to join the conversation when it was such a new platform. And my team is made up of a couple of sub-teams. One of the other sub-teams is the social responses, the engagement team. So they basically, respond to comments, respond to partners, respond to anything in the social sphere, joined conversations online. And this is another strategy of ours to be able to increase brand awareness, right? And I remember when we first opened the profile on Threads and seeing all these other brands being like, what is this? What's happening here? And just being able to speak from one marketing group to another marketing group, and everyone just having such a fun, unhinged time on a new app that didn't have any, any social requirements, if I can say that, more like a social understanding of how to act on that app, was so fun. And it really re-sparked a lot of of our creativity juices. As a brand, yes, it is so important to remain consistent. And I think with Threads, it's one of those early stage apps where we just have to keep an eye on right now. We are from time to time checking it out. We're not putting as much effort into Threads as we do the other more stable platforms. But I do think Threads is speaking to an audience of tweeps, ex-tweeps, who loved X, loved Twitter, and found that the app has, or the platform has really evolved into something that they really didn't like anymore. And so Threads is speaking to them. And so Threads is trying to almost give another space and make it just even better. And we'll have to see. I'm in a little I'm in a little Instagram group with the head of Instagram, who I love. And he's always posting updates about Threads. So I know that the team is also working really hard behind the scenes to be able to make it the best user experience possible. We're very early in the stages of Threads, and I'm just very excited to see where it goes from here.
Yeah, this is a great leeway into my next question, which is future of social media. Talking about everything that is happening with the Fediverse and Metaverse and etc. Because for me, one of the key added value of Threads is that it's Fediverse compatible. So I don't know how much you know about this and what it means. No? Okay.
Not much.
Okay. All social medias today are platforms that are owned and centralized. Okay. If you think about data ownership, all those platforms are independent, right? They don't talk between each other, except Facebook and Instagram in some ways, right?
Because they're owned by the
they're owned by the same
right.
mother company, right? But you cannot use your Twitter account to post on Facebook a tweet, for instance. They're not talking to each other.
Right.
Fediverse says that you can use not a platform but a protocol that is compatible to multiple social media accounts. Meaning you can have one account. Yeah, you can have one account that basically allows you to interact with other platforms that are not necessarily owned by the parent company, and it's decentralized.
So that's Fediverse.
That's Fediverse. Yes. Right. So
interesting.
Threads is supposedly is going in that direction because it's developed on the ActivityPub protocol. Check it out, which is the protocol that was developed by Mastodon. You know Mastodon?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's like the social media for the super techie guys.
Yeah.
Mastodon is the first basically Fediverse platform that is supposed to, it's not centralized in one server. It's like the users are the servers basically, right? So Threads is supposed to implement that technology, looking at the future of social media and how we're moving into Web3. And when I say Web3, we're talking about all the decentralized technology that are happening, etc. So
you can always find people in the space who are going to say, trends and what's going to happen in the next 5 years. But I think the really special and beautiful thing about social media is nobody knows. And I think it's very interesting and keeps people on their toes. And as a social media manager, it's scary and exciting all in one. No one knew that TikTok would have blown up this much. No one knew that Instagram was going to launch Threads. And there's going to be, people can have trends about audience behavior, for example, or where the direction of social media is going to take. But I think the actual nuances and intricacies is going to continue keeping us on our toes. So I think as long as you have the skills to be able to navigate and be flexible and continue learning, because I think that's really key as someone who's in social, then I think we'll all just have a great time online.
Cool. I think that's a great place to end this episode. But before we do, where can we find you online, Natasha Chang? Give us your best links.
Wow.
TikTok, Threads.
I think please find me, connect with me on LinkedIn. I am also on Threads. I'm lurking, not active. Natasha Chang on all platforms. And yeah, I'm relatively private on other platforms, so just LinkedIn.
Cool. I will put the links in the show notes.
Thank you.
Natasha Chang, you did a great job.
Oh my
FYI,
God.
everyone else, this is her first podcast episode ever.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming. I'll do that again soon.
Thank you so much, Fabien.